Welcome, my dear friends, to the studio. It's getting closer and closer to completion. As you know, this is a DIY, I'm bored, no gigs, Corona project. I'm happy that I did it. It's just like every day, I'm just like loving it even more. But anyways, today it's not about the studio. Today it's about things I've learned as a music producer, and especially things that I was reminded of, like big mistakes that a lot of beginners actually do while listening to over 300 submissions for my remix competition. We ended it yesterday with announcing the 4 winners. Amazing songs. Check out the video, support them. They're really good producers. And I thought, why not share that knowledge? Because by listening to 300 songs, there were some really good ones, some really bad ones, and I would love to share my findings, the biggest mistakes with you, so you don't do these mistakes anymore in your music production. The first reason why 50% of all the remixes I've been listening to were eliminated, it's not matching. The vocal doesn't match the instrumental. They're in different keys, it's clashing, it sounds horrible, you hear it immediately. It throws every listener off. It's a huge mistake as long as you're making electronic dance music, any kind of commercial pop music, any kind of Spotify music, it has to be in key. All of the elements that play any kind of melodic part that has a tuning to it needs to fit. This also includes toms, which a lot of people forget. This one's also fairly easy. It is elements sticking out. In this remix competition, mostly the vocals were either way too loud, way too quiet. Here in this example, I just turned up the clap by a couple of dB, and it's just jumping out of the mix. It's sitting on top of the mix, or sometimes elements too quiet are buried in the mix. That's usually a big mistake, shouldn't happen, especially not with main elements. And for like a very simple electronic-based track like this, and most remixes, having a clap way too loud, it just doesn't work. There is like a range where it's at the bottom loudness, in the middle where it's like medium, and where it's on the louder edge. So there is a range of maybe 3 dB where you can choose, but if you're above it or below it, you're basically ruining the song a little. Yeah, that sound doesn't sound that pleasing. I just picked a random preset, and the point is like sound selection, sample selection. Modern music depends on it to 90%. You just have to select the right things. They were already made. You just select them, put them together, and play notes to them. That's what music production is right now, especially for modern music. It's not like back in the days where you recorded everything. So you need to select the right stuff. So, for example, this sound right here, it's okay. But I then spent hours to find something that fits better. The next point is muddiness and things that shouldn't be in a mix. So for example, if I open up the mix window, you can see on almost every track there is a low cut. The EQ always cutting the lows on every single EQ I put in there. Sometimes I boost some stuff, but mostly it's just getting rid of the low end. That's really, really important. There is sometimes something, sometimes not. Sometimes you can hear it, sometimes you can just see it in the analyzer, but best is just getting rid of it. Cut the sound and the low frequencies up to a point where you can start hearing that it affects the sound, and then back off. If you want to make the sound thinner because it's needed for the mix, then of course cut even higher into the sound. Then there are a lot of other technical things. Stereo width. A lot of producers either don't make anything wide and you're listening to a song in mono, which might sometimes work for a very clubbed track, but in general you want to have things stereo to separate them from the mono elements. For example, a guitar and a vocal will usually frequency-wise interfere with each other, and to separate them, it could help to make the guitar, for example, extremely wide and let the vocal play in the middle. Also, common things that most producers know about is not having any reverb on very subby elements, not having the very sub part and the stereo, and EQing your reverbs, like this kind of stuff. Those are general things most producers know and that a lot of people teach producers. Yes, you can break these rules eventually, but at the very beginning, just stick to it because it absolutely makes sense. Another huge factor was definitely arrangement. A lot of songs had good ideas, and while skipping through them, it sounded fine, but when I then started listening to the entire song, they fell apart. They were just boring, repetitive, very loopy, and not enjoyable. As a producer, you sit in front of your DAW, you loop up a section and let it play the entire time and do your thing. But a music listener just starts a song and listens to it from the start. So you need to grab the attention as soon as possible, especially now with Spotify. And you need to keep the interest of the listener. If they're listening to the exact same thing for an entire minute, it's boring. It even gets annoying no matter how good that loop actually is. So make sure to automate a ton. For example, here in this project, I mean, it's not even like 15-20% done, but there is already like a lot of automation. For example, right here, the cutoff on the chords is opening and closing. And if you zoom in even closer, you can see like the vocal is playing. And every time the vocal has like a little gap where she's not singing, the cutoff of the synthesizer is opening to keep interest there. The vocal, the main thing, the most interesting, is not there. So make sure to have something instead there to keep the interest. So it's really throughout the song done in a way where it's always like there's always something happening, something changing. And it doesn't have to be something really wild, just like especially for club music, small changes over time are really amazing for the crowd. If you do pop music, yes, there needs to be a lot more change, and it's less done with automation. It's more done with the arrangement itself, having elements pop in and pop out and sections being entirely different. The vocal is usually what glues everything together. But in general, arrange your tracks properly. For the next one, I'll get a little closer because it's that important. Don't start overcomplicating things. Music production is once you get to a certain level where you understand your DAW and what a compressor and EQ does, how a synthesizer works, it's fairly simple and straightforward. You don't need too many tracks. Most songs are fairly simple and minimal, and that's usually what makes them great. It's like a dish you eat. You don't want to have every single ingredient that is available on the planet on there, even if those are great ingredients. You want to have something on your plate that makes sense. So if you want to make something Asian, then stick to Asian ingredients and make an Asian dish. For music, it would be make something that has a certain style and idea and like puts a little thinking behind it and not just like everything together. Yes, you can make like crossovers between two styles and stuff like that. That's fine, but don't put everything in there. This just overcomplicates it by a lot. Additionally, another thing that people overcomplicate is using too many plugins, too many unnecessary plugins, being caught up in watching tutorials on YouTube where people are like, that's my favorite compressor and blah, blah, blah. That's all bullshit. It doesn't make the track. I could produce without using a compressor and it would probably still sound pretty much the same. EQs, yeah, maybe a little more useful, but then also mostly the low cuts. I could erase every single compressor on this track, every single EQ, and I'd argue that like the normal listener would still say it's the same song. Those are not the things where the sound is made. Again, it's sample selection, arrangement, and your musical idea. Also very important, something I always do all the time, every hour at least once, like just go to Spotify or anywhere else where you have the music you like to listen to. Try to find something that is similar to what you're planning to do and just like listen to these songs, 2 or 3, and just refresh your ear, reset it, and then listen again to your song, A and B, just comparing it. If you listen to someone else's song and then back again to your song, and the first thing is that you realize it's way too dull, then go back in there and make the bright elements a little louder, or maybe EQ it a little on the master. But usually I'd suggest do it on the individual tracks, which also leads us directly to the next very important point. If you have a problem and you want to solve it, always go back as far as possible as you can, back to the source. If a vocal isn't good, go back to the source, the singer-songwriter. If they do not pronounce it correctly, if they do not sing it correctly, there is just so much you can do in the post-production and editing. If a vocal is bad, you can't rescue it. You need to go back to the source and replace it. If a kick doesn't work to like 10%, then yes, change it, maybe compress it, maybe EQ it, maybe cut it, maybe make it shorter, maybe pitch it up or down by 1 or 2 semitones. But if it's not working entirely, don't try to fix it with plugins. Just try to find another sample. Also, a lot of people think that mastering is the thing that will make your song sound like everyone else's song out there. It's not. And nowadays, I would even argue that mixing doesn't do that much for you. Yes, if you back in the 80s, 90s recorded a band, mixing was a huge part of like the sound aesthetic and how fat it sounds. But nowadays, since it's again very sounds and sample based, it's about selecting the right sounds and samples, and the mixing isn't that important. Let's take a general like techno club track or a pop track in the drop where you just have like kick, bass, vocal. It's not hard to mix 3 elements. It's about using those 3 elements to its best potential and like having the best 3 source materials to work with. That's, I think, the trick nowadays, at least. And just as an example, this project, again, we're at 34 tracks, but if you look closely, like in this section, for example, there's just a kick right here, the bass. We have some hi-hats playing, like an arpeggiator, another arp as a layer, a pad, a second pad as a layer, and the vocals. So not a whole lot. There are not a lot of tracks playing at the same time. Having a project that has like 50, 60, 70 tracks doesn't mean all of them are playing at the same time. Usually, absolutely not. I'd argue in most cases, there are not more than 5 to maybe 15 tracks playing at the same time. And that makes it a lot easier to mix. This makes it a lot easier for the listener to focus on something. Again, the example with like food, the dish. If you look onto a plate, you want to have like a main thing, a side thing, and maybe some vegetable if you like it, and a sauce. It's the same with music. Don't like put too much on there. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense. And then the last step, which is like an easy fix for every producer, and I heard it a lot listening to these remix contest entries, was finding the right amount of loudness. You don't need to fully destroy your song on the master to get it to the same loudness as everyone else's tracks on Spotify, but also don't make it too quiet. Like, give it a good amount of loudness. I personally, for example, if I go to span or like the isotope inside thing, like it shows you here in RMS a value around like -10, or here in the loudness, it measures it in lufs, also like -8, -10, something that is like a decent amount of loudness, but not too much, not too little. Because you still don't want your song to be quieter than everyone else's. And if you don't know how to pull it off, then get someone to master it for you, but don't expect them to rescue your track. They just can't. They just get this one file. They can only EQ and compress it and limit it, and that's basically it. And the very last is again a very important one. Equipment, everything you see right here. It doesn't matter. I'd even say it doesn't matter at all. I know so many producers that don't have any outboard equipment, that don't have great speakers, that just mix with headphones and produce their music with headphones, that don't have an acoustically treated room. I personally have the acoustically treated room because I can work a lot faster this way, but this is something personal for me. I know a lot of people that don't have it and still make great music. Also, the outboard stuff, it's nice. I like it. I don't always use it. I have to be honest. Does it sonically change my music? Maybe to 1%, if even. But it's like a more of a workflow thing than a sound thing. and I don't know, I'm just addicted to gear. I like it, but it's not necessary. Like my most successful song that has like over 3.5 million plays, I made it 5.5 years ago actually. And I made it in Berlin in the shittiest, like you couldn't even call it a studio. It was like our living room, and I only had speakers in there, a keyboard, and that was it. No acoustic treatment, no outboard gear, absolutely nothing. But this track that I made there helped me to evolve to something like this. So just get started, try to make the best out of what you have, and always keep in mind it's possible. Just please avoid these kind of mistakes. Thanks all for watching. Let me know about your top 10 most embarrassing, most unnecessary mistakes music producers do. Leave it in the comments. And if you're interested, there is still the special deal where you get for $5 all of my sample packs. Every single one, like a couple of gigabytes. This is up until the very end of this year. So thanks all for watching. Tomorrow back again here in the studio, making more music.